Namaste, welcome back to Part9 channel. It's been a while. I made a video on solutions architect, and the reason I think I might have already told you, right? If not many people show interest in this series, then I won't post these videos very often. But if you want me to post this video every day or every other day, then all you have to do is smash that subscribe button, like and comment. Okay, that is kind of indirectly telling me that you guys want me to post these videos very often. If I don't see much activity on these videos, then I can go and make videos where people are actually interested and being active more on it. An example would be the cloud practitioner certification videos. Every day I'm posting one of them because people are actually interested in it. They are more active on those videos. Okay, so if you want me to post this almost every day or every 2 days, all you have to do is hit the subscribe button, like and comment. If you are already subscribed, thank you very much. That means a lot to me. If you haven't, then go ahead and do that. I noticed 80%, almost 80% of the viewers are not subscribed yet. So please go ahead and do that. That being said, let's start with our question number 81. A company wants to ingest customer payment data into the company's data lake in S3. The company receives payment data every minute on average. The company wants to analyze the payment data in real time. Okay, they are talking about in real time, and we know what are the real time services on AWS, which has to do with Amazon Kinesis family. Then the company wants to ingest the data into data lake. They are talking about most operationally efficient. Okay, so let's go through different options. First of all, you can eliminate this one because they are talking about real time, and use Lambda to analyze the data in real time. Not gonna happen. And then looks like the other three options have some kind of kinesis being used, which you can see here. But what they are talking is analyze the data in real time and also ingest the data into the data lake. Okay, so if we go and look at option B, because it's talking about use glue to ingest data, then use data analytics to analyze the data in real time. But it doesn't work that way, right? You cannot stream data from glue to data, kinesis data analytics in real time. So if it is the other way around, at least makes sense, but not this way. Then we are left with A and C. This one is using kinesis data streams to ingest data, which will work fine. Real time, yes, it is near real time, not anymore. And then we have Lambda to analyze the data in real time. Okay, so this works fine, but the second half doesn't work fine because again, you cannot analyze data in real time using AWS Lambda. I mean, you can analyze it, but not in real time. It is going to take some seconds or minutes. Then we are left with options C, and we already know that with Kinesis, by leveraging the combination of Amazon Kinesis Data Firehose, and also Amazon Kinesis Data Analytics, we can efficiently ingest and analyze the payment data in real time without the need for manual processing, for example like using Lambda or etc., or additional infrastructure management. This solution provides a streamlined and scalable approach to handle continuous data ingestion and analysis requirements. Okay, so if you want, we can go ahead and take a look at the data firehouse here. Reliably load real-time streams into data lakes, which is one of the requirement, warehouses and analytics services. Okay, so we can load into data analytics, and we can also load into analytics service, and so you can go ahead and read through the rest to understand it more. If you look at this picture, you can see we have the Amazon Kinesis data firehouse here. Okay, so that is our answer, which is C, using data firehose to ingest data and then data analytics to analyze the data. You are not going outside of these two tools to process the data. 82. A solutions architect at a company is designing the architecture for a two-tiered web application. The web application is composed of an internet-facing application load balancer that forwards traffic to an auto-scaling group of Amazon EC2 instances. The EC2 instances must be able to access a database that runs on Amazon RDS. The company has requested a defense-in-depth approach to the network layer. The company does not want to rely solely on security groups or network ACLs. Only the minimum resources that are necessary should be routable from the internet. Which network design should the solutions operate? Okay, I think we did a similar question to this, and this is the typical setup that they have. They have ALB facing the internet, then the request come through, first reach the ALB, from ALB it will send the traffic to the auto scaling, and depending on the auto scaling rules, it will send it to the respective EC2 machines. Okay, and then these EC2 servers, they access the database that runs on Amazon RDS. This is all good, but what they want to do is they want to design this in such a way that only the necessary resources or the minimum resources that are necessary should be routable from the internet, and the remaining should not. So most of them should be in private, which should not be accessed from the internet. Okay, so this one we have seen. So if we look at it, let's go and look at each option. The first one is talking about place the ALB, EC2 instances and RDS database in private subnets, which is a big no. The reason being, if you place all of them in private subnets, how are the internet users are going to even reach to your web server, right? It is not possible. At least one of them should face the public internet, so that users from the internet can actually access the web server. So this is a no, which means since ALB is internet facing, it should be in a public subnet. That is given. So if you look at it, this is in public, good. Then they are saying place the EC2 and RDS in private instances. This will work perfectly in my sense. It makes sense because this is public, so users can reach to ALB, and then ALB will transfer it to the EC2 and RDS. Since these two are private subnets, what you can do is you can configure the security groups for this, for EC2 to come to only allow from ALB, and RDS you can create another security group that will allow only from EC2. Makes sense. Okay, so let's hold on to this. Then we have place ALB and EC2 on public. Again, this will work, but again you are having the EC2 open to public internet, which is again not going to go with defense in depth approach. Okay, and also they are asking us to give minimum resources. So when we can do best, why would we settle with okay, right? So this is not the option we want. If there is an option that is better than this, I will pick. If not, this is the best option. Then place the ALB outside the VPC, not possible. Place the EC2 instances in private. Okay, so the first one, it's not possible, so let's cross out. So we are left with this one. Always remember, only the one service which is facing or giving access to the users to enter, that should be in public, and that's good enough. Remaining all can be in a private subnets. Question number 83. A company has multiple Windows file servers on premises. The company wants to migrate and consolidate its files into an Amazon FSx for Windows file server file system. File permissions must be preserved to ensure that access rights do not change. Which solution will meet these requirements? Okay, so technically they are on premise, they want to move their Windows file server to AWS, and they want to use Amazon FSx for Windows file server from that. Okay, but the requirement is when you do this migration, whatever the file permissions that you have must be preserved. They don't want to change it. As you already know, sometimes when you copy or move, The file permissions won't be moved along with them. But here they want to have it, so they are talking about what are the steps we need to do in order to preserve that. Okay, so let's look at different options. Option A, deploy AWS data sync agents on premises. Schedule data sync tasks to transfer the data to FSX for Windows file system. Okay, this makes sense because when you are migrating, obviously you need to move your data from on premises to this. Okay, but why do we want to use data sync? Why not something else? Let's see if there is any other option for this. Okay, so for that they are talking about copy the shares on each file server into Amazon S3 buckets by using the AWS client. Schedule AWS data sync task to transfer the data to. Okay, so till here it's the same like the first option, but I don't know why they want to do this. Doing this will work for us. Why do we have to go to the extent where on each file server into Amazon S3 buckets by using? Why do we have to do that? We don't need that. Okay, because I think they're talking about copy it to S3 then sync it from S3 to file server, which is a big no-no. Then we have remove the drives from each file server, ship the drives to AWS for import into S3. Schedule AWS, no, we don't need that. Why am I saying we don't need that? I mean, when I can do it with just this, these two steps are irrelevant. And then let's talk about, then the other two options are order an AWS no-code device, connect the device to the on-premise network, launch AWS data sync agents on the device, schedule. These make sense as well. So they are not asking steps, they are asking what are different ways we can do it. So yes, this is one way. And if you see, everything has data sync in it. Why do you think every option has data? Why do you think every option has a data sync in it? Because data sync ensures that file permissions are preserved during the migration process. That is the reason all of these have data sync in it. They are just trying to combine data sync with other services. Okay, so this makes sense to me. Even D makes sense to me because let's assume that you have too much data. So data sync is a service that happens on public internet, right? Maybe you don't want to do that. Maybe you want to preserve it, your bandwidth, etc. So what you are doing is you are actually going to use an AWS no-code device. Then you are connecting the device to on-premises. Then you are going to launch data sync agents on the device. Okay. Then you are scheduling the task to be transferred. Makes sense. So let's look at the option E and decide whether it is D or E. Okay. It says order an AWS Global Edge Storage Optimized device. Connect the device to the on-premise network. Copy data to the device by using AWS client. Ship the device back to AWS for import into Amazon S3. Schedule AWS. This is too much. We can do it. It's doable, but it is too much work compared with D. When you can run data sync agents on the device, why do you want to do all this? Okay, so let's cross that out. So the answer is A and D. Okay, so the option D, it involves using AWS Snowcone, a portable data transfer device. You would connect it to Snowcone device to your on-premise network. Then launch data sync agents, which is similar to the option A. Then you will schedule. Then data sync handles the migration process while preserving file permissions. End of story. This would not keep the file permissions intact because you are copying data to AWS client. Okay, so as soon as you do that, the file permissions are gone. Same thing with option C and with option B. So B, C and E, we are not going with them because they are actually being copied to S3 first, which removes it won't preserve the file permissions. So that will leave us with A and D. You can look at it that way as well. 84. A company needs to minimize the cost of its 1 GB AWS Direct Connect connection. The company's average connection utilization is less than 10%. A solutions architect must recommend a solution that will reduce the cost without compromising security. Which solution will meet these requirements? Alright. if you look at it, they are saying their utilization is less than 10%, which means they are about maybe 100 MB or close enough to 100 MB. So what they are saying is, let's reduce the cost by changing that connection to something else, maybe a lower one, because they don't need a 1 Gbps. Okay, maybe 100 Mbps or something like that, right? 100 Mbps, or maybe 10% is exactly 100, so let's go with 200 just to be safe. Okay, but here the option A is saying set up a new 1 Gbps direct connect connection, share the connection with another account. Why do you want to have another one? Already we were trying to save money here, so why do that and then share it with another AWS account? Set up a new 200 Mbps direct connect connection in the AWS console. Well, the problem is you don't have 200 Mbps on the direct connect. Direct connect only supports 1 Gbps, 10 Gbps, and 100 Gbps. Contact an AWS direct connect partner to order a 1 Gbps connection. Share the connection with another AWS account. Again, we already have a 1 Gbps. We don't want, because we are not using that much. So why again go with 1 Gbps? So the answer would be D. Instead of using direct connect, we are going to go with direct connect partner, and then we will order 2 Mbps, because direct connect connection don't have the option of 200 Mbps, but direct connect partner has flexible plans starting from 50 Mbps, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 1, 2, 5, 10 Gbps. Okay, so that is the answer for this question. So let me show you a document. Okay, if you look at this, it will explain you more about the direct connect. And if you look at here, you can see the dedicated connections and hosted connections. Hosted connections are nothing but through AWS Direct Connect Partner. So 110, 100 Gbps, but you can see you can order port speeds between 50 and 100 Gbps. Okay, so there goes your answer. Check this out and read through it for more information. 85. A company uses Amazon S3 to store high resolution pictures in an S3 bucket. To minimize application changes, the company stores the pictures as the latest version of the S3 bucket. The company needs to retain only the two most recent versions of the pictures. The company wants to reduce costs. The company has identified the S3 bucket as a large expense. Which solution will reduce S3 cost with least operational expense? Got it. They're storing images and they want to access the last two versions and maybe delete the remaining ones. Now let's look at the options. Use S3 lifecycle to delete expired object versions and retain the two most recent versions. Okay, so they are talking about using this. I mean, this is actually the least operational overhead. Remember the keyword. Whenever you see least operational overhead, what did I tell you guys? Always think about some service that is mentioned in the question. Here they are talking about S3. So try to see if S3 has any feature where you can utilize it to do whatever the question is asking. That would be your best operational or least operational overhead you can do. If that is not possible, then you can go for others, but most of the time the tool mentioned in the question will have some feature that will be in the answers. Here as well, they are talking about S3 and S3 has S3 lifecycle, which you can definitely do this. Okay, but let's check the other options before going there. Use an AWS Lambda function to check for older versions and delete all, but this is possible as well. But compared with A, this has more operational overhead, so I won't pick this. Use S3 batch operations to delete non-current object versions and retain only the two most recent versions. Okay, the problem is when you are saying delete non-current object versions, you are literally deleting the other version as well. So I mean, even if you can, this is more operational overhead than A. Deactivate versioning on S3 bucket and retain the two most. If you deactivate versioning, then how are you going to have versions going forward? It won't. Okay, so let's cancel this out. So the answer A remains as our answer, because using S3 lifecycle, you can expire or delete expired object versions and retain the two most. So in the lifecycle policy, actually you will have an option written what versions you can mention to. And let me open some document for you. Go through this documentation which talks about the lifecycle configuration elements and how you can keep the last two versions and delete the remaining. Question 86. A company has a service that reads and writes large amounts of data from an Amazon S3 bucket in the same AWS region. The service is deployed on Amazon EC2 instances within the private subnet of a VPC. The service communicates with Amazon S3 over a NAT gateway in the public subnet. However, the company wants a solution that will reduce the data output costs. Which solution will meet these requirements most cost effectively? Okay, so we are connecting to S3 from EC2 using a NAT gateway because the EC2 is in a private subnet, which means you cannot communicate with other resources over public. So instead you are using a NAT gateway, which is in a public subnet. Okay, which is all good, but for some reason they are having cost problem with the data output. As you know, data egress costs money. So what we should decide? We should decide a cost effective solution. Let's look at each and every option, because as you know, NAT gateway is like a separate EC2 machine and that NAT is installed on it. So maybe that's why. Provision a dedicated EC2 NAT instance in the public. Okay, so setting up NAT instance is more operational overhead than NAT gateway. Both are same. NAT gateway and NAT instance both are same, but this is serverless, whereas this you need to have a dedicated EC2 machine and then install that on it. Then configure the route table for the private subnet to use the elastic network interface of this instance as the destination for all. It's similar to the NAT gateway. If we want to move away from NAT gateway, you will never go to NAT instance at all. Okay. Then we are talking about provision a dedicated EC2 NAT instance in the private. You will never provision NAT instances in a private. It's always public. Whether it is NAT gateway or NAT instance, it's already in public. Then we are talking about provision a VPC gateway endpoint. Configure the route table for the private subnet to use the gateway endpoint as the route for all traffic, which is good. This is good. Okay, so we are going to create an endpoint. Again, you know, VPC endpoint you can create for only two services, which are S3 and DynamoDB. In this case, it is S3. So you are creating this and then you are routing the data from the EC2 private subnet to the gateway endpoint. So which is good. This will reduce a lot of cost for the data output. Let's look at option D and see if the D option is better or not. Provision a second NAT gateway. I mean, you already have one. Why do you want to have another one? So this is not the option. So we will go with C. Remember, a VPC gateway endpoint allows you to privately access S3 from within your VPC without using a NAT gateway or NAT instance. So by provisioning a VPC gateway endpoint for S3, the service in the private subnet can directly communicate with S3 without incurring data transfer cost for traffic going through a NAT gateway. That's the reason we will go with this. 87. A company uses on-premises servers to host its applications. The company is running out of storage capacity. The applications use both block storage and NFS storage. The company needs a high-performing solution that supports local caching without re-architecting its existing application. Which combination of actions should the solutions architect? Okay, so here one giveaway or a keyword is whenever you see you are moving from on-premise to AWS for storage, and if it says supports local caching, then pick storage gateway. Storage gateway is the only one that actually supports local caching. So whenever you see the word local caching, just go ahead and pick storage gateway. They are also talking about it should support NFS and block storage, and we already know storage gateway does that. Okay, I will show you that in a minute. But storage gateway, right? We have two options. One is deploy AWS storage gateway, file gateway, in order to handle the NFS storage. deploy storage gateway, volume gateway to replace the block storage, and it's support both of them. So those are our answers. Let's cross the remaining. You don't even have to read them because none of them supports local caching. So let's cross them out. And first of all, so they are talking about what are they talking about. And another thing you need to remember is without re-architecting its existing applications, right? Which means you cannot have the option C, which is using a device to provision mounts to on-premise servers. This Snowball device is something that is used for moving data from one place to another, not to have it at all times stayed in the on-premises. Okay. And EFS, they are talking about mounting on on-premise, not possible. And then the first option is mount S3, you cannot mount. Actually, even you can cross out the other three very easily, but yeah, B and D are the options. Now let's look at the documentation for file gateway. Storage gateway. Okay, you can see the features for it. Not the features, the gateway types. You have tape gateway, and you have volume gateway for the block storage volumes. Then you have file gateway. You have S3 file gateway and FSX file gateway, but both you can use for the what is it? This is for SMB, but we are looking for NFS, right? So let's look at that. Okay, you can see you have NFS and SMB. This supports both of those. Okay, and let's see if anywhere it mentions cache. No, that is not what I'm looking for. Yeah, as you can see, fully managed cache. The local gateway appliance maintains a cache of recently written XYZ. You can go through this and learn more about this. Now, let's go to 88. A company is conducting an internal audit. The company wants to ensure that the data in an S3 bucket that is associated with the company's AWS Lake Formation data lake does not contain sensitive customer or employee data. The company wants to discover personally identifiable information or financial information. Okay, I will stop right here because we already know to identify personal PII data we use Macy. Let's look at the options. Which one has Macy? No, bingo. Okay, so just pick that option. It's a keyword. As soon as you see PII, then just come and pick Macy. You don't have to even read the others. 89. A company uses Amazon EC2 instances to host its internal systems. As part of a deployment operation, an administrator tries to use the AWS client to terminate an EC2 instance. However, the administrator receives a 403 error message. The administrator is using an IAM role that has the following IAM policy. What is the cause of the unsuccessful request? Okay, so let's understand this. The effect is allow. What is allowed? Terminating an EC2 instance, and the resource is star, which means everything. Okay, then there is an effect here which is deny. This is one, and then the deny. What are they denying? EC2 terminate instance, and the condition is this: if wherever you are getting the request, if it is not coming from these two, then deny the remaining. Okay, so if this admins if it is unsuccessful, which means his IP address is not from these two. Okay, only these two have allow to terminate EC2. Anything that is not these two IP addresses, there is a deny. Okay, that being said, let's look if one of the options says administrator doesn't belong to these two IP addresses. The EC2 instance has a resource-based policy with a deny statement. No. And the principal has not been specified in the policy statement. You don't have to, because it has the IP addresses here. The action field does not grant the actions that are required to terminate them. No, it does. It actually has easy to terminate. So the answer D would be our option D would be our answer, and it says the request to terminate the EC2 instance does not originate from these two. Yes, which is what we identified from this. So the answer would be D. Okay, you need to know how to read through this statement. Okay, then only you will be able to answer it. 90. A company wants to use artificial intelligence to determine the quality of its customer service calls. The company currently manages calls in 4 different languages, including English. The company will offer new languages in the future. The company does not have the resources to regularly maintain machine learning models. They are just saying this to indirectly tell us that we want a managed service or some service where we can just easily maintain the models. The company needs to create written sentiment analysis reports from the customer service call recordings. Written sentiment analysis from the call recordings, which means you need a service. You need a service that will convert audio to text. The customer service call recording text must be translated to English. Then once you have it in text, you need another tool to translate it into English, which is what they are talking about. So you need 3 tools here. One is for the machine learning, another one is speech to text, another one is text to translate it to different languages. Okay, so let's look at those 3 languages. Do you remember which one's which? Any idea? Okay, if not, let's go through this. Okay, first one, to have the maintain machine learning models. Okay, the company will offer new languages in the future. Does not have regularly maintain machine learning models. We have the written sentiment analysis. So that will create sentiment analysis reports. Right, the tool that actually does that is the comprehend, which we will take a look at. I will search for it. But comprehend, it is used to create the sentiment analysis reports. Okay, which we will go through because it has A and F. It is talking about translate audio recording. Comprehend doesn't do that, so we can cancel that out. And okay, and Lex to create written sentiment. Lex doesn't do that. Lex is a is that a chatbot? Yeah, Lex is a chatbot AI. It doesn't do the sentiment analysis reports. You can cross that out. And Poly, they are talking about to convert the audio recordings into text, which it doesn't do. Poly doesn't do it. Poly does the other way around. It converts text into speech, not speech to text. That will leave us with 3 options. But even without looking at it, we should remember this, right? If you watched those videos or if you did the certification, you already learned about this. Speech to text is always transcribed, and the key word or the easy way to remember, how did I tell you? Transcribe. Trans means change, scribe means writing. So you are changing something into writing. What are you changing here? Speech. So remember transcribe as like that. Okay, transcribe. Then you have translate. Okay, translate is used to translate. I mean, the name itself suggests, right? You have translators for these. Whenever a politician goes to different countries, they will have translators where they translate their native language into English or etc. So this tool is used to translate anything to English, which is our second requirement. The first is converting that, but again, even before this, first of all, we need to generate those sentiment analysis report, which is what comprehend does. Okay, remember, you need to remember these tools. These tools are actually tested in Cloud Practitioner exam a lot. Alright, so those are the tools, and that's our answer. Actually, this is a pretty easy question. This actually belongs to in a Cloud Practitioner exam more than a Solutions Architect exam. 91. A company has multiple AWS accounts for development work. Some staff consistently use oversized Amazon EC2 instances, which causes the company to exceed the yearly budget for the development accounts. The company wants to centrally restrict the creation of AWS resources in these accounts. Which solution will meet these requirements with the least development effort? Okay, whenever the question says there is a company, when there are multiple AWS, as soon as they mention multiple AWS accounts, think of the answer as organizations all the time. Okay, because organizations, you can have restrictions at a organization level for multiple accounts. Instead of going into each account and setting up permissions, etc., you can do it at a much higher level at organization. And if you look at the options and identify where we have organizations, and there is only one option which that, so you can directly pick that option, which is B. Let's assume you don't know that. Now let's go through our options. A, develop AWS Systems Manager templates that use an approved EC2 creation process. Use the approved Systems Manager templates to provision EC2 instances. Okay, so first of all, let's check what AWS Systems Manager templates are. Okay, so this one, even if you can do it using this requires development effort. It is not as easy as flipping a switch, right? So I won't pick this because remember I told you, whether it is development effort or operational overhead, look at the question and see if they are talking about a particular tool, and think if that particular tool has different features where you can use it, instead of completely having some other tool do it. Because in AWS we know that there are so many tools that can do the same job, but which one is more efficient? You need to think in that way. Then we have C, configuring event bridge rules and Lambda functions, which requires development effort again. Okay, that's what I'm telling you. You can do the same thing in multiple ways, but you need to think about this one. Then they are talking about option D, creating service catalog products require development effort to define the allowed EC2 configurations. Okay, so that is what they are talking about, to create that, ensure that staff can deploy EC2 instance only by using that. Again, operational. Instead of doing all that, all you have to do is go to organizations and then define and attach a service SCP to control the usage of EC2 instance types. Okay, this organizations is at a organization level. All the sub accounts under that, this rule will apply. But if you are going to do either A, C or D, then it is for each account, and then you have to repeat it in all accounts. And if they want to change it in future, then it is going to be a lot of developmental effort. 92. A solutions architect is designing an asynchronous application to process credit card data validation request for a bank. The application must be secure and be able to process each request at least once. Which solution will meet these requirements most cost effectively? Okay, so whenever they talk about it should process each request at least once, it has to be SQS, not SNS. Okay, so remember the keyword process each request at least once. So after looking at that option and after looking at that keyword and looking at the options, most of them are talking about SQS, because SQS will make sure you process each request at least once. But if I look at it, two options have FIFO and two options have standard, and both can be doable. But in this question, we don't need FIFO. FIFO is first and first out. For example, if you want to preserve the order of requests you are getting, yes, FIFO. But in this scenario, we don't need it because it is expensive than the standard. So, and the question asks cost effectively. So let's cross these two out. B and C are gone just because of that. Once we eliminate B and C, let's look at these two, A and D. Use AWS Lambda event source mapping. So both have that. Set SQS standard queues as event source. Same as that. Use AWS KMS for encryption. Here same as that. Here we are talking about use KMS keys for encryption. Here we are saying key management system for encryption. Add the KMS decrypt permission for the Lambda execution role. Add the encryption key invocation permission for the Lambda role. Okay, so the problem with these two would be the Lambda function only needs to decrypt. Okay, so all it needs is this one. It doesn't need the key invocation permission for Lambda function. You don't need that. Alright, so that's why we'll go with answer A instead of answer D. Both are same till the point where one of them uses the just needs decrypt permission, and the another one is talking about adding the key invocation permission for the lambda function. Okay, first thing you need to remember is the KMS decrypt permission is added to the lambda execution role to allow it to decrypt messages from the queue. So that will do it for us. We don't need the invocation permission. 93. A gaming company uses DynamoDB to store user information such as geographic location, player data, and leaderboards. The company needs to configure continuous backups to an Amazon S3 bucket with a minimal amount of coding. The backups must not affect availability of the application and must not affect the read capacity units that are defined for the table. Which solution meets these requirements? Okay, so they are talking about continuous backups. So let's underline that because that is a keyword. And remember, DynamoDB provides a feature called continuous backups, so which will automatically backs up your table data. So enabling continuous backups ensures that your table data is continuously backed up without the need for additional coding or manual intervention. Okay, so that is one option, and if you remember that, then we can eliminate the other options by looking at them. Okay, so here it's not using DynamoDB, cross it out. Here it's not using DynamoDB, cross it out. And then we have B and C, one of them DynamoDB, but I must use, but we are talking about DynamoDB, not the streams. So let's cross it out. That leaves us with option B, DynamoDB. Okay, minimal amount of coding, remember this, just which means like it's almost similar to least operational overhead, and least operational overhead means try to look at the features that are available for the tool mentioned in the question, which is Amazon DynamoDB. Okay, and once after you backup, you can export it to S3. With the continuous backup enabled, it can directly export the backups to S3. What happens by doing this? This will eliminate the need for custom coding to export the data, right? It is built in. You don't have to use some other tool like Lambda as mentioned in option D, or EMR cluster as mentioned in option A. And then they are talking about no impact on or not affect the read capacity units. Okay, so enabling continuous backups and exporting S3, it does not affect the availability of your application or the read capacity unit defined for the table. These operations happen in the background and do not impact the table's performance, or they won't consume RCUs. So for that reason, option B is our best pick. 94. So we are almost at the end of this video. We have one more question to go. So if you have not subscribed yet, go subscribe, like, and comment on this video for more videos too, if you want more videos to come. 94. An e-commerce company runs an application in the AWS cloud that is integrated with an on-premises warehouse solution. The company uses Amazon Simple Notification Service, which is short for SNS, to send order date messages to an on-premises HTTPS endpoint, so the warehouse application can process the orders. The local data center team has detected that some of the order messages were not received. A solutions architect needs to retain messages that are not delivered and analyze the messages for up to 14 days. Which solution with least effort? Least effort operational effort means try to use the features of the tool that is mentioned in the question. Okay, so first of all, let's analyze the question. They are sending some request for data warehouse application to process the orders, and unfortunately they detected some of the order messages were not received. So now they want to retain those messages that are not delivered and analyze those for 14 days. Okay, that is the question. Now if we look at the options, let's go one by one. Configure an Amazon SNS dead letter queue that has an Amazon, no, actually SNS dead letter queue, it's SQS dead letter queue, not SNS dead letter queue. So It is only talking about having SNS dead letter queue. Forget about it. B, add an SQS queue with a retention period of 14 days between the application. Well, you can do this, but you are not talking about handling those um, messages that are not received. How are you going to capture them? Okay. Then you have C and D. Both C and D use Amazon SNS dead letter queue that has an. Here we have Amazon SQS. Here you have Amazon DynamoDB. As I mentioned, there is no such thing as SNS dead letter queue, but if you have SQS as target, then yes, you can use the dead letter queue then. So these are used to handle messages that are not delivered to their intended recipients. When a message is sent to an Amazon SNS topic, it is first delivered to the topic subscribers. If a message is not delivered to any of the subscribers, it is sent to the topic's dead letter queue. Amazon SQS is a fully managed message queuing service that enables you to decouple and scale microservices, distributed services, and serverless applications, which we already know. And another feature is SQS queues has is it can be configured to have a retention period, which is the amount of time that messages will be kept in the queue before they are deleted. To meet the requirements of the company, you can configure an Amazon SNS dead letter queue that has an Amazon SQS target with a retention period of 14 days. This will ensure that any messages that are not delivered to the on-premise warehouse application will be stored in the SQS queue for up to 14 days. Okay, so let me open up a document for you. Okay, so if you look at it, Amazon SNS dead letter queues. A dead letter queue is an SQS queue. Remember this. That's why I said you don't have such thing called SNS dead letter queue, because it is an SQS queue that has an SNS subscription. Can target for messages that can't be delivered, which means this SNS dead letter queue cannot be used with any other subscriber other than SQS, because the dead letter queue actually belongs to SQS. Okay, so that is our answer, which is answer C, because even answer D is kind of same, but they are talking about target as DynamoDB. If the target is DynamoDB, then SNS dead letter queue does not exist. Okay, that is our answer. Question number 95, which is the last one in this video. A 4-year-old media company is using the AWS organization's all feature set to organize its AWS accounts. According to the company's finance team, the billing information on the member accounts must not be accessible to anyone, including the root user of the member accounts. Which solution will meet these requirements? Okay, so there might be some setting on organizations where you can restrict access. We just spoke about it. You can restrict access to all these sub accounts in an organization from organizations resource. Okay, so let's go through each option. Add all finance team users to an IAM group. Attach an AWS managed policy named billing to the group. Again, this no. What are you going to do? Attach an AWS managed policy named billing to the group. Again, which account are you going to do that? From your each one of your sub accounts? No, that doesn't make any sense. Attach an identity based policy to deny access to billing information to all users, including. Again, this is too much operational overhead and etc. Because you are going to go and put this identity based policy to deny to each and every account. Then we have create a control service control policy, which is SCP, to deny access to billing information. Attach the SCP to the root organization. Okay, this is something that I would prefer, because you are doing this in the AWS organization tool, because you can write SCPs, which are service control policies, where you can restrict access to all the sub accounts in that organization. So let's hold it. Convert from the organization's all features set to all consolidated billing. No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to change anything that is already there, except we want to deny it. So the answer is, so you have a feature available in AWS organization called SCP, where you can manage the permissions to all the sub accounts. You can even from here say like nobody can change an S3 bucket from private to public. You can define it here, and all the accounts S3 buckets, they cannot change it to public. There are so many things you can do from here. All right, that being said, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you liked the analysis. If not, give me feedback whether you liked it or not by commenting, liking, and subscribing to this channel and to this video. And thank you very much for being with me till this point. We have finished 95. I think next video we will cross 100, then we can celebrate. And I'm planning to have a quiz set. For this quiz set is something where I will have questions moving every 30 seconds. So there will be 65 questions, and at the end of that quiz, I will post the key answer key for them, so you can correct your questions and etc. It's like simulating the real exam, but yeah, that's what I will do. But I will do that only if we reach a subscriber number of 75. All right, so in order to do that, if you are looking forward for that quiz of 65 questions, then all you have to do is subscribe if you have not. If you already subscribed, then just like and comment these videos so that I will know you guys are interested in doing that. So I will release that video as soon as we hit that number. That being said, thank you very much. Have a nice day and see you tomorrow.